rushed rush through the weekly rushes. Your weekly roundup of all the news that's happening in the streaming world and the movie world. And the first story of this week is the Alec Baldwin story, once again on the set of Rust. The Santa Fe Sheriff's Office has demanded or instructed Alec Baldwin to hand over his mobile phone. Alec Baldwin's lawyers had argued for a while that he needn't do and that they refused the request. The Santa Fe Sheriff's Office also kind of recommended and advised Alec Baldwin not to appear on any chat shows and things like that, which of course we know after last week's Weekly Rushes that he did, claiming or saying strangely that he didn't pull the trigger, but somehow the gun went off. They are seeking access to his iPhone, and to quote the Sheriff's Office, they say they believe there may be evidence on the phone due to individuals using cellular phones during and or after the commission of a crime. Such information, they say, if it exists, may be material and relevant to this investigation. As I say, prior to this, Rust stars and the producers' lawyers said no. I'm not necessarily suggesting that kind of, is a sort of admission of some kind of guilt, but it's going to get tricky, isn't it? Because in the heat of the moment, all sorts of messages, all sorts of denials, all sorts of admissions might have been made in the heat of the moment, and this case looks like it's going to roll and roll. It's been another intriguing week, really, where a lot of the news actually revolves around behaviour off-screen rather than what's going on screen. And you might have seen in the press that with the release of And Just Like That, which is the follow-up to Sex and the City, starring many of the members of the original cast, I have to confess, I haven't seen it, but the critics have been pretty severe, haven't they, in their assessment of this follow-up. But one of the characters, Mr. Big, who's played by Chris Noth, hit the headlines this week as accusations swirled around sexual assaults that he was alleged to have committed, I think back in 2004 and 2015. This is one of those intriguing stories. This is less about whether he did or whether he didn't, but this is more about the way in which such things are reported, because at the beginning of the week I read the headlines as Chris Noth accused of rape. And by the end of the week, the stories revealed that Chris Noth is not being investigated for sexual assault claims, and that's said by the police. By all accounts, proceedings were not brought against him by one of the allegers, and Chris Noth has gone on record this week as saying, "The accusations made against me by individuals I met years, even decades ago, are categorically false. These stories could have been from 30 years ago or 30 days ago. No always means no," he says. "This is a line I did not cross. Any encounters were consensual. It's difficult not to question the timing of these stories coming out." I mean, obviously it's going to come out like that, but sometimes you wonder whether if an allegation or an accusation comes out, it should maybe not fall into the public realm until it's been sort of rinsed through and whether an actual prosecution is going to be taking place. The other story that I just want to touch upon briefly is the Harvey Weinstein case, which is looking strangely perilous in terms of him staying in prison. By all accounts, his defence team are buoyed and enthused by the idea that in appeal, and I think there's 5 justices or judges considering the appeal, 3 of the 5 seem to be of the opinion that too much was thrown at Harvey Weinstein, and that perhaps there may be some grounds for a reduction of sentence or potentially a removal of sentence. And so the word on the street is that actually Weinstein's camp are feeling quietly confident about potentially dropping or removing some of the New York convictions. Denis Villeneuve, the director of Dune, Blade Runner 2049, and other such great big epic movies. Obviously, he's getting ready. He's dusting off his chops. He's chomping at the bit. He's saddling up to make Dune 2 with Chalamet and Zendaya and all the original cast. Rebecca Ferguson. I had a dream about Rebecca Ferguson this year. I think she's just such a brilliant, enigmatic actress. I really do. So as he's gearing up for that, there was news landed this week that he's also going to tackle, probably after Dune 2, another classic sci-fi story by, this time, Arthur C. Clarke. Do you remember Arthur C. Clarke Presents? Wasn't that something that used to be on TV in the 1970s? He's tackling Rendezvous with Rama. And this is a story, I'll read the blurb. This is a story that follows a group of human space explorers tasked with intercepting an alien starship, kind of nothing new there, that's hurtling through the solar system, but it's believed the mission will lead to mankind's first contact with alien intelligence. I mean, Denis Villeneuve, I'm beginning to think, is kind of the art house director for big epic sci-fi, isn't he? So it looks like Denis Villeneuve is going to be stuck in space for quite some time. I'm not particularly familiar with the actress Amanda Seyfried, but the reason I pulled this story out is there's a series called The Dropout, in which Amanda Seyfried is starring as a businesswoman, or former businesswoman, called Elizabeth Holmes. And the story behind this is remarkable. It's a Hulu limited series, as I say, called The Dropout. It's based upon a podcast which charts the rise and fall of this Elizabeth Holmes's career and her company. But Holmes was a woman who founded this medical testing startup company that Steve Jobs of Apple TV sort of bankrolled, embraced, took under his wing and what have you. But it became apparent across a period of time that none of this tech actually worked. And so in a sense, it will look at the way in which this self-made female billionaire, not entirely unlike Steve Jobs, the ascendancy, she rocketed into space. I'm sorry, I've got lots of space analogies today, and how she fell back to Earth with an enormous bang. And any story arc which is going to be about, a character going through such a multi-billion-pound transformation in her life is going to have to be fascinating. Now, you may have seen on the Weekly Rushes a few weeks ago, Ray Liotta was talking about how he was really scared because the daughters of Frank Sinatra threatened to send him the severed head of a horse. Not a real horse. I think, in fact, they did send him the severed head of a toy horse or something like that because he refused to play Frank Sinatra in a movie or a series that they were planning back then. Well, it looks like one of Sinatra's daughters, Tina Sinatra, has managed to get this a series away at Netflix. It's a Frank Sinatra bio series. Bill Condon is the guy behind it, writing and directing. He's the director of Gods and Monsters and Twilight. There has been a miniseries in the past called Sinatra. Of course, it's the story of Frank Sinatra, the crooner, the singer, the actor, the mafia friend of, the romancer of all sorts of actresses, Marilyn Monroe, the friend of or associate of JFK. This is going to be good. Unfortunately, I think this is just going to be good. I think everyone's going to watch it. We're all fascinated by Frank Sinatra. He had the charm, but he also, I don't know if you felt this, but whenever I looked at his eyes when I was, as a member of the Rat Pack, when I was a boy and I looked at his eyes, there was a deadness behind them. There was a sort of cold, callous willingness to do whatever he could, I felt, to get what he wanted. So I never liked him. I got really bad vibes off Frank Sinatra. Again, Tina Sinatra is one of the producers, his daughter. So to what extent is this going to be an authentic warts and all portrait, and how much of this is just going to be a hagiography, just sort of showing all the best bits, and maybe, sort of flirting with his overindulgences in women, because that always seems to be something that's permissible, doesn't it? Nadia was a huge fan of the Golden Girls. I have to say, I wasn't at all. It used to drive me mad. The music drove me mad, but I recognise that it occupies almost a cult status and cult position in a lot of people's lives. Well, there was a spin-off called The Golden Palace, which was released quite a while back, but this is now being picked up again by Hulu, and so we're going to have the follow-up. And they're timing it, the franchise, to be relaunched on Betty White's 100th birthday, or near to Betty White's 100th birthday. So that's going to be sweet. So any Golden Girls fans out there, The Golden Palace is going to be streaming for good on Hulu. Now, Last Train to Busan is one of our favourite Korean movies. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. Don't see the sequel. The sequel is a poor follow-up to an original film. It was a very original horror film and edge-of-your-seat stuff. It transformed one's idea of what a zombie could be. Suddenly, when they're fast-moving, ravage, face-tearing off eaters, zombies become scary, whereas zombies in The Walking Dead just aren't scary because you can just keep walking 10 paces ahead of them and they'll never catch you. Well, the remake is being made by Warner Brothers. I don't know what you feel about American remakes of European or foreign films. Generally, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's needed, generally. But anyway, this is called, not surprisingly, The Last Train to New York. And Warner Brothers have notified us that there's release dates for this in 2023. I mean, my God, soon we'll be doing dates for 2030. They also are talking about the fact that there's a movie called Toto, which tells the story of the Wizard of Oz from Toto the dog's point of view. The trailer for the new Nick Cage film landed this week, and yet another strange, bizarre, culty mashup of Nick playing himself as a failed himself in a debt-ridden crisis, which he was at one point in his career, taking on jobs that he doesn't want to take. So far, it's just his story. And then he's sort of asked to attend a superfan's party, discovers that the superfan, played by Pedro Pascal, is a drug cartel head, or the head of a drug cartel, and finds himself tied up in some kind of terrible drama, thriller / hunt or heist or something that kind of goes wrong. Having seen the trailer this week, if you haven't seen it, go and check it out. It's called The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which is deeply ironic, and it looks like Nick is having a laugh at himself, which sometimes the worry with Nick Cage is, yes, he does a lot of batshit crazy content and films, but sometimes you think, God, does he just believe his own weirdness is real and should be real? And does he not see himself as weird? And if he doesn't, is he just some strange egotistical chap? Well, this trailer, I think, shows that he can have a laugh at himself. I'm intrigued. I'm looking forward to it. As I say, it stars Pedro Pascal. There's Lily Sheen in there too, playing his daughter. It looks intriguing. Go and check it out. By the same standards, another trailer that landed this week, and we are going to be reacting to it, is In Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. A strange, whacked-out, experimental, bizarre film starring Michelle Yeoh. You'll know her from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Tiger, Crouching Tiger, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, is it? So she stars in it, and it's a sort of multiverse, twisted, hallucinogenic, strange, all over the place, swords, colour. It's just abstract madness. But I'll tell you what, the reason I was drawn to this story, it's made by the team who made Swiss Army Man. And if you haven't seen Swiss Army Man, go and check it out. It stars Daniel Radcliffe as a farting corpse. Yeah, you heard me right. It stars Daniel Radcliffe as a farting corpse. Basically, it's the film of Paul Dano on a sort of desert island, Robinson Crusoe style, finding this dead body that washes up, which is Daniel Radcliffe. And in his head, Paul Dano brings this corpse to life, and Daniel Radcliffe plays the corpse. Well, this film is by the same filmmakers. It's got things like heads exploding into confetti in the trailer. It looks like a bizarre, strange, but Michelle Yeoh is also playing herself in two different versions of herself within the film. So that's batshit crazy. Nick Cage's is batshit crazy, but we like batshit crazy, don't we? We want things to be batshit crazy. So movies of the week. The timings of movies landing this week has been a curious one. Spider-Man No Way Home, obviously we didn't mention it last week because it landed this Wednesday. It's done staggeringly well at the box office. It's tracking to be the most successful release in the pandemic, which sometimes whenever I hear, the highest release in the pandemic, you think, well, is that an achievement? Because cinemas aren't doing great business. But industry midday estimates that Spider-Man No Way Home, which was released on Wednesday worldwide, is already north of $200 million. All eyes are on whether it nosedives today, to what extent there's always the peak and then it falls. But we're looking forward to seeing it. I'm seeing it later today, Spider-Man No Way Home, starring obviously Zendaya and Tom Holland. I think everyone's a bit surprised by how successful this is. And obviously it sits within that Sony side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A lot of excitement, a lot of very, very positive reviews, a lot of 5-star reviews from the kind of esoteric press as well as the mainstream press. So that kind of augurs well, and we will be reviewing that on the channel. The other film that's being released is Matrix Resurrection, and I've got a terrible confession to make. Although I have played table tennis with Keanu Reeves, I haven't seen the original Matrix films. They sort of passed me by. I think I was in such a drug and drink-addled state, I never went to see them. So I will be watching them in the run-up to Matrix Resurrection being released, which is released on the 22nd. That is, 4 days from now. So that's definitely one of the movies being released this week, and I will be watching. You're going to get your usual Keanu Reeves, but again, I think with Matrix Resurrection, Keanu Reeves inbuilt into his performances is a sort of self-deprecation and an acknowledgement of his limitations, and then he turns that into a virtue by being quite deadpan and quite comic. So I think that should be fun. The special effects look astonishing. The trailer is really invigorating, actually. A lot of thought, a lot of effort, a lot of complexity in there, riffing on the original films, which, as I say, I'm going to go and binge watch just prior to the release of this film. And so there you have your rush through the weekly rushes. What snagged your interest? What are your thoughts? Share them below.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.